like I'm home. I've seen so many places, I've been so many things. Just trying to get on by, don't gotta live like a king. I just wanna give and get and hold a little love, a little love. Love, 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 love. I don't know where I am going as time is moving on by.
Why, hello there. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm George Washington. Oh, wait a minute, hold on. I probably should clarify that I'm not the George Washington that you're thinking of. Don't confuse me with the fella who was an actual living, breathing person. I'm not him per se. I didn't nearly freeze to death at Valley Forge. I didn't have false teeth, and I've never chopped down any cherry trees. I would never do that. After all, I'm part tree. I guess what I should say is that I'm the likeness of George Washington. My real name is L534515557J. That's the letters and numbers you see up in the corner to your right and on the bottom corner to your left. Some of you may even know me by a simple nickname I've acquired over the years, the Dollar Bill. Though personally, when folks ask me what I prefer to go by, I simply reply, they call me George. Your entire infrastructure, everything you've ever bought, sold, or invested in depends on me maintaining my monetary value. If I were to collapse, so would the entire global economy. Which is what brings me to the point of this story and why I'm telling you all of this. Just like any of you out there, I've always yearned for the basic things in life: a home, a family, someone to want me. But for me being something that you all seem to hold in such high regard, the way I've been treated my entire life up to this point, no one would ever know. I guess I should start at the beginning. I remember my first home. It was quiet and serene. In fact, that's me, right there, the big one in the middle. Though it was wonderful growing up here, I will say I never got to know who my parents were. But it could be a good thing. I was told they were a couple of nuts. Sorry, bad pun. Things were great for a while. I had lots of friends who'd come and visit me every day. We'd laugh and share tales of our woodland experiences. It was fun.
Summertime just comes around once a year, boy. Summertime just comes around once a year. If the sun is shining, don't you be inside crying, 'cause summertime just comes around once a year, boy. Let me see the sunlight on your skin, girl. Let me see the sunlight on your skin. It's getting hard, let's take it off. You get the beer, I'll find the pot, and let's feel the sunlight on our skin, girl.
Then one day, somebody new showed up to where we lived. Somebody who didn't want us living there anymore. Whoever he was certainly no friend. He was a crazy, axe-wielding, chainsaw-using, hard-hat-wearing lunatic. He murdered everything in his path. I survived the ordeal, but I was forever changed. This psycho had cut off every one of my limbs. Imagine waking up one day to find you had lost all of your arms and legs. Not something you want to picture, is it? But this was now my reality. For the next several days he would visit me and continue to saw away at the remaining parts of my body that were still whole. Soon I was nothing but a pile of sawdust. Honestly, from that point on, everything is kind of fuzzy, almost like I had been abducted by aliens. I don't really remember too much of where I was or what was happening to me. If I opened my eyes, I would just see all these flashing lights. Sometimes I would see people's eyes staring down at me as though they were examining parts of my body. Maybe that's why they placed this eye on the back of me. By the end of it all, What you see now is what I had become. Eventually, I was relocated to a new home. My new owner seemed very overprotective of me. They never let me outside. Day and night I was locked in some sort of steel vault. The nice thing is I wasn't alone. There were other George Washingtons there I could talk to, and many other nice fellows too. I met a Mr. Lincoln, Mr. Hamilton, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Grant, and a Mr. Franklin. I always found it strange that there were no women, though. Then one day it happened. My owners finally let me outside of the vault. They placed me in a nice warm drawer with some other bills, and even though it was dark most of the time, it was cozy and felt safe. At least it was, until the day my owners decided they no longer wanted me. On that fateful day, some random fellow came into the bank where I was at and gave my owner an Alexander Hamilton bill. My owner then proceeded to give him me along with 9 of my George Washington brothers. And that was it. I had a new owner. I never saw my previous owner ever again. My new owner must have been a real ladies' man. He took me to a place where all these women threw themselves at him. Some of the women even took off their clothes. He must have also been a modern-day Fred Astaire because they all kept asking him if he wanted a dance. Let's just say it didn't take him long to give me away to one of them. The next morning, my streak of having new owners continued. This time I would find myself getting tossed aside into a young girl's hat lying on the sidewalk. Luckily, I wasn't alone in there. Some other George Washingtons who also had been given away by their owners were here too. So I guess this was it. Whoever this young girl was, she was now my keeper. I liked her. Her voice was pleasant and I enjoyed the songs she sang. And it helped pass the time of being in the hat, because there wasn't really much else to do in there. A few hours had gone by, and some other new George Washingtons had joined us. Not just Bills either. I was surprised to find out there were also some George Washington quarters. I also met some Thomas Jefferson nickels and some Franklin Roosevelt dimes. When my new owner finished singing her songs, she bent down, picked up the hat, and looked at all of us inside. It made me happy. She seemed pleased that we were hers, all of us here in this spacious hat of a home. But the hat wasn't our home. Instead, she reached down and grabbed all of us and in one quick motion shoved all of us into her pocket. It was dark, we were crinkled, and it was awful. As the days went on, it seemed I would never escape this dark pocket I was crammed into, and though it started out really crowded with all of us deep inside, as time went on, more space opened up. Every so often the young girl's hand would reach inside and take a few of us out. I assumed she knew how miserable we were, and she was doing her best to relocate us to a better, friendlier environment. Eventually, I was the last Bill remaining. A few more days had gone by, and I began to think that this sweet young girl had forgotten about me. But I would come to learn that wasn't the case at all. I would also come to the realization that she was not a sweet young girl, not even close. Instead, she was a sadistic, torturous murderer. Now, it was dark, so I wasn't sure what exactly was happening or where the jeans pocket I was currently deep inside of happened to find themselves. But there was one thing I was sure of. I heard water. Lots of it. A few moments later, and I felt that water all around me, and it just kept coming. Suddenly, I was submerged. She was trying to drown me. Somehow, I survived the ordeal. With all my might, I clung to the side of this death bin, trying to hide from the young girl as she retrieved her jeans. Luckily, she didn't spot me. However, another young woman did see me a few moments later. She reached into the machine and grabbed hold of me. But what I thought was a rescue soon turned out to be another horrible moment I would have to succumb to. She started to violently shake me about. Already being dizzy from the spinning machine I was just in, I passed out. When I would awake, I would find myself the victim of a new, terrible torture. While I was unconscious, this new girl pinned me to a rope and left me to die in the hot, sizzling summer sun. It seemed I would meet my final end burned to a crisp. Some time had passed and I was hot, desperate, and waiting to die. But I wouldn't meet my end here. By the grace of God, which I believe in because it's written on me that we trust in Him, a young man whose face I couldn't see snatched me down from the wire of death, and with me clasped tightly in his hand, he took off running. He was scurrying me away to safety and freedom. A hero, if ever there was one. A few days had passed, and I wasn't sure who was now in possession of me. All I do know is that I was surrounded by some nice people. They all seemed to enjoy each other's company, and they shared tales of their life together. It reminded me of my forest friends that I used to talk to so long ago. These people laughed, they sang songs, they drank some ale, but most importantly, they showed me that some people can be good. A new fellow eventually arrived that everyone seemed to know and must have thought very highly of. They all paused their conversations to make sure they greeted him.
Everybody love the coke, man. Coke, white girl pimpin'. Never go broke, man. Everybody love the dope, man. First word pops. Seen it through a third world scope, man. Everybody love the coke.
He walked into the center of the room and took out a small plastic bag filled with some type of white powder in it. After he dropped it onto the table, the man who was holding on to me threw me down on the table next to the plastic bag. I wasn't sure what everybody suddenly got all excited for, but I assumed something neat was about to happen. This new fella picked me up and rolled me very tightly into a straw-like shape. He then separated the powdery material into individual lines using me. I was fine with all of this until he stuck part of me into his nose and used me to inhale this dusty mix into his body. As it passed through me and into his nostril, I started to instantly feel a change come over me. More so, after he sniffed this powder through me, I wanted more of it. Sniff me again, I thought to myself. Now! Sniff it again, right now, this instant! Soon, I started to get this warm, fuzzy feeling all over. Then I blacked out. To this day, I still don't know what happened next.
World scope, man didn't get it hard cause he know from the start that he gonna be a part of a large operation. Getting down in the band in the basement. He tried to run with it, but they never escaping. I'm adjacent but not complacent. Looking in his eyes, you could see the frustration. He be cradling the homies, enabling, but they coming for a rude awakening. Like every day you gotta earn your life or learn to die. And if you wanna sell, you gotta yearn to buy. And if it's your turn to fly, you better burn the sky. You hear him speak, he got the word of wise. It's like he got the whole herd right behind him. He might lead him off a cliff, but he might just...
When I came to, and I finally opened my eyes, I didn't know if it had been minutes, hours, or even days. But I was no longer in the house. I was lying face down in the gutter. I had a horrible headache, too. I desperately needed someone to pick me up and get me out of this gross-smelling sewage. But no one did. No one even knew I was here. This is when I was at my lowest. No home, abandoned and left all alone to wither away in a pile of leaves and rainwater. If paper could cry, I would have done so.
Keep me around. Don't leave me here, drifting away, wanting to stay, not knowing how to stick around.
All I wanted was for someone to love me and give me a permanent home.
To stick around.
Was I asking for too much?
Been through it all.
Was I seeking more than I was entitled to?
The love, the hate, all starts to fade into mind-numbing gray. I feel so alone, without a home.
Didn't a simple dollar bill deserve a chance at life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? I guess not.
Use me, take me and abuse me. No one ever wants to do with me. No one even dares to start to think that I'm special or valued. No, just dreadful. Their eyes just pass right over me. Their eyes will never really see me.
Then one fateful day, somebody actually pulled me up from that gutter. But instead of realizing that my life was about to change forever, I remained bitter and jaded for the way the world had treated me, and I became just as dark, cynical, and tainted as the world I saw around me. I assumed this man who reached into the gutters and pulled me out was going to throw me away first chance he got, just like everyone else. And sure enough, he did. Worst of all, he gave me to some little girl selling lemonade on the sidewalk. Lord only knows what she'll probably do to me. Cut me up into little pieces of scrap, make a papier-mâché doll out of me, who knows? This young girl told the man that he was the first customer she had all day. The man told her he was happy to be helping out her little business venture. If they could hear me speak, I would have told him to tell this kid to just give up. It's a lonely, cruel world and no one will ever love you. Then the man goes on to say, glad I was able to provide your little business with its first dollar. Cherish it, young miss. All I could think to myself was, yeah, right. But as it turns out, she did cherish me. That little girl took me home, told her mother and father all about how she got me, and then with her parents' help, put me in this nice frame. This is where I've been ever since. As I said earlier, I'm not the George Washington that everybody knows. But just like him, I cannot tell a lie. It's good to be home.
Sheltered from the sunlight in the shade beneath the tree. We hide behind the shadows like an orphaned refugee. The apple tree of knowledge shed its fruit along the way. The injury is fading, but the hunger is here to stay until the day when there's no memory of what we used to be. Golden sunrise, burn your eyes, filled your dark skies, and made you blind. Oh, the heads all turn to darkness when the sun engulfs the sky. The brightness overwhelming to the unadjusted eye. We're taught to follow blindly like there's nothing here to see. A slave to some philosophy will somehow make you free, and you will be so glad